What's up, guys? So today we're going to take a look at some vibe coding exercise. So this is definitely the vibe coding tutorial video, one of the first one that focused on vibe coding. Long overdue, it should have been a lot earlier, but the goal of this video is really just sharing a little bit the way, the workflow you would be in a modern era like this one, how you would come up with a studio, taking advantage of all of these tools that are coming in hot every week and what's available on the market. Every time there is something new, so I'm pretty sure that this video will get up to date actually very soon, but so far so good. Let's try to just take advantage of what's available now and give you like tips and tricks to just get your lenses done very well and fast, and so you have chances to do more things that you would like to do and just explore more ecosystem of spectacles and Lens Studio. So without further ado, you can see in my screen Lens Studio is prepared and it's open. This is a new spectacle interaction kit project, so just for giving you some context, basically if you go on home, you can just click on base template with example, and that's the examples that you will find. You will find the spectacle interaction kit, which is a prefab that includes all what you need for interaction and inputs, and then you will also find some SIK example, which are the respective example for spectacle interaction kit. So grabbing a container, playing with 3D models, and so on. But today, this is really not the focus. The focus is actually benchmarking the way we can vibe code Lens Studio. So let's share right away the setup that I recommend. So one thing that I want to mention is if you've never installed Claude Code, it's a tool which is part of Anthropic. And you might already know Claude as a model through different interfaces. You might know it through just going on claude.com, cloudcode.com or anthropic.com and see just like the UI interface, see ChatGPT. This is exactly the same model, so you might actually ask yourself why this and why not something that is embedded in Visual Studio or Cursor. Well, I got the answer for you, and thanks. I need to credit this YouTuber called Chris Rosa. He has a very good video here. It's under 13 minutes and kind of explain you his process for building application using before Cursor and then Claude Code. And then it gives you all of the opinions about what's better, what's worse, and why it's becoming more popular across developer and so on. So you can really apply all of this learning to your workflow eventually. So shout out to Chris Rosa. But if you go on Claude Code, you will see that you can just install it with a command line. So this might be a tool that it's more for people that sometimes occasionally use the command line, but really there's nothing very difficult here. You just need to copy and paste this command, and then you will be able to install Claude Code. And when you install Claude Code, let me just like, you can just type Claude and Claude will start. It tells you welcome to Claude Code and so on. It gives you some slash and shortcuts comments. So for example, one of the comments that they recommend is the init command that creates a markdown file, sort of a readme, which is the main file for the LLM to just go through your project. So we will do this again. Notice also that the structure on my project is very well thought, meaning that I have a base, a root folder called vibe coded, and then I have my spectacle project, which is the one that I'm working on, and then I have all of the spectacle sample repository, which I cloned it from this link, which is the usual one that I promote every time when I just share stuff on social or on this YouTube channel. Why we're doing this? Because this is our context, and I think there is a lot of good code in this repository that can be super helpful for you to do things. So for example, the benchmark of today, let's say that the exercise of today will be trying to create an application that merges audio pitch and speed and time. So some sort of, if you ever play super hot game, so even here crediting that amazing game, which is more of a VR game, but I wanted to just like extrapolate that logic, which I think is very cool. The fact that you can slow down or speed up audio based on acceleration. So it's pretty straightforward. This should be already included mostly in this project. So this DJ Specs has actually a JavaScript library that allows you to do something like that for pitching the music. And I want to extract that logic and isolate it in my new project and just do something else with it. That could be maybe visualizing my walk with kind of creative animations, or simply detecting the acceleration and do something with that acceleration value. So I can just like tailor my experience with the glasses based on acceleration. So even here, it's just to do apps that are contextual. So I'm always thinking about that little part of our daily life and experience, which is kind of isolate and then build an experience on top of it. And maybe this can be something that is helpful, sometimes can be just some sort of an enhancement or something that can improve our life or just giving a new way to see our surroundings. So once again, I would recommend that after you install Claude Code, you run this command that is called init. And when you run this, Claude Code is analyzing all of your code base. And because we run this into the root folder, which has my project and my sample repository here as a documentation source, it's going to go through all of this and just understand in its own terms what it needs to be done. Something to say here is that there are two subscriptions of Claude, like ChatGPT. There is the monthly normal that is under $20, and then there is the another pro subscription. Is around $200. In the YouTube video which I just saw here by Christopher Rock, he actually worked full time on all of his applications, so it's kind of a solo developer, or maybe he has a small team, and he actually takes advantage of the $200 per month subscription. He highly recommends it. I also know that these expenses are not for everyone, so I'm not going with that one. I'm just going with the normal plan for now because we're just running a test basically, but he goes through the details and said why eventually having a bigger context, if you use this every day, it can become very helpful. Another thing that I wanted to mention regarding, let's wait for a second here, I want to just show you something here. So the cursor does something very similar for you, and is the indexing function. The indexing function is here and allows you basically to add documentation. You can just copy paste a link from the Land Studio documentation, and usually as you see here, I pasted the Land Studio editor and the Land Studio API. Where do you find those? You go in API reference, then you go in Land Scripting API here, and you go in full API list. So this is the link for the full API, and we'll need to do the same for the editor. So 1 and 2. These are the one that I indexed, and then recursively cursor will just go all through these links that are in this page, and then we'll be indexing. So that's kind of the same thing. So we are very well equipped. We have cursor on one side. So these two are two separate things, by the way, just making clear. We have cursor on one side, which is also powered by Claude, by the way. And look what I did here. I actually got the max mode, which is enable maximum context, Windows and tool call. And then we have Claude Code here on the terminal and says, do you want to proceed? Yes. It's just listing. This is still part of the very first indexing. So it's going to create like a README file here as a reference in the root folder. So it's just going to go through probably as a context every time that you ask a question, and it's just going to go through for a little bit and trying to understand what's going on. You notice that here there is a new file, which is called ClaudeMD. And this file provides future Claude Code instances with essential information needed to understand and work effectively in this Spectacles AR project. So we have so much context here, which is probably just like the context needed for AI to get started. And now we go through our little challenge. We will do it first with Claude Code to also understand how to use it properly, because I have to be honest, I didn't use it so much as cursor in my daily work. I used it mostly as, I think Claude Code is mostly recommended as big refactoring tool as well, to do a lot of things at the same time. Also, there is not a nice way like cursor to go back in some, let's say that you do something wrong and you want to go back to a previous change. Cursor actually has that embedded into the UI. This actually is not that straightforward, so sometimes just faster. If you want to do small changes, maybe just using cursor. If you want to do like changes or you need a lot of context, I think Claude Code actually seems like being the go-to, and probably I will start to use it. What we want to do, we want to get basically the pitch shifting utilities that are from this script. And then we want to create a sort of acceleration utility that allow us to go faster and listen to the music faster and go listen to the music slower. So let's also create our project in a way that makes sense. So things are in order. We need basic UI to understand if things are working. Now that we're ready to start with our container frame here, we have our title, our audio, and we have our scripts folder. So let's go back to cursor editor and let's use Claude Code. Please understand very well the structure of this project, and then we can just drag and drop our DJ specs, especially in this folder, because I need to, let's make it this way. We're lucky, one script of this includes all what we need, but let's not take it for granted, especially if we are going through a project for the first time and we don't know much. But here's the goal, is really just, instead of doing everything from scratch, is like merging things and blending things that are already existing, so we save some times. So now it's exploring all of this. While it's processing, I want to also add some details about a question I think I didn't answer before, which is why Claude Code and instead of cursor when they have the same model. I heard very different opinions on the internet about this. I think a podcast I saw some weeks ago was telling basically like, well, Claude Code is made by Claude. It's made by Anthropic, which is the cloud maker. So there might be a better way to, all of these agentic workflow are the tools that are built on top of the main general model. So there might be a better understanding of how the model works because they are the persons that actually, they are the people that actually develop it. So that was one opinion, and I think that's pretty reasonable. I would say it's a pretty reasonable opinion. The other one I got is that, well, Cursor, it's like a tool that also aims to scale. And if you notice, Cursor can also have a lot of different models here. You pay a flat subscription and you need to handle all of these models basically with this almost the same tools that are running on top of it. So in that case, there is the fact that Cursor might be a little more general because it adapts to multiple models instead of one particularly. And still, once again, the argument that the Anthropic people make Claude code instead of Cursor people could be actually providing better quality at Claude code. But let's see. So here I just asked for the first step to understand what things are going on here. Seems like I understand quite deeply what's going on. And let's try to, for shortcut. Oh, let's see, nice. So it gives you also like some tips here, which is very nice. I think you can also shift, shifting mode. There is a way basically to shift between agent and ask, which is the main thing that basically allow you to edit files and not editing files. I think that's shortcut is shift. So let's try really to tackle and build a script. That's what we need. I'm gonna try to stress it because otherwise what's the point? Say, all right, now you know how this works. This time trying to, this is Claude code for you. So let's see what happens here. See right away that it creates actually 3 utilities. One just for the acceleration, one for the pitch, and combines them both. One thing which I did not provide is actually how to access component between TypeScript and JavaScript. Let's see if it gets it on its own. Otherwise, if that is something that is not immediately understood, we have our essential project where actually we have a full folder of examples for accessing components. So again, context here is really important. All right, so the file actually is being added there. The pitch controller, let's see if this is a TS file or actually a JS file. This is a TS file. So in this process, seems like he converted the JS utility into TypeScript. Let's see if that's accurate. All right, so Claude code just finished this acceleration to pitch utility system. Let's see what it says. Created files that purpose calculates velocity and acceleration in any scene object based on position change. Key features: smooth velocity calculation to avoid jittery frame variations. Configurable smoothing. Pitch controller controls audio pitch base, including acceleration data. Can work independently or linked to acceleration calculator. Configurable pitch, range, sensitivity, and smoothing. Supports both velocity and acceleration mode, and so on. Well, let's see. I think sometimes the tough part of this exercise is also testing things in the editor, because you cannot really run like a test through the, you need to test it in Lens Studio. You cannot really run it through the terminal right away, but we see that there are already some errors. Let's see what kind of errors we have in here. It says cannot find acceleration calculator. Okay, so this is what I was actually afraid of. And the thing is that in Lens Studio, there is a very specific way to access components or getting scene objects. For the second part, I was afraid that this was going to happen. So actually there was some issue in creating component and understanding how to access it. The issue is that in Lens Studio, there is a very specific way to access components. So this was a little bit expected. So I actually put a new prompt that says you need to take into account blah, and I actually provided as a context this access component folder, which includes from our essential project, includes all of the ways to access components between TypeScript and JavaScript. So we know how to do it. It just does Claude code knows how to do it. So it's a good situation to be in because we can actually provide the context needed for making things work. Another thing I noticed is that all of these utilities are now in TypeScript automatically, which is great, but also the original were in JavaScript. So I just want to also double check that that makes sense, because sometimes there are common patterns and I don't want that Claude code trips out on that. So now it was just going through all of the utilities, and I think the edit that is proposed here is, do you want to make this edit basically just to make something accessible via editor and reference instead of just creating new components. So something like a public reference in the inspector, which is very common in Lens Studio. So we say yes. But the second shot finished up right now. Let's see what's going on here. If there is still something wrong, I noticed that we just have 2 errors in the acceleration to pitch. Is that formatting or something else? Let's see what's the error here. And actually we don't need this, so let's remove it ourselves manually. And let's see what's going on here. This controller is not assigned to the type boolean, and this acceleration is controller, maybe that was missing. And with some manual work, we actually made everything work fine. Now we add our system, so let's call it audio acceleration. That's great. We actually just need a scene object that just for making a visual reference. Let's skip, since that might actually be not too accurate. Actually, what I want to do is do something like this. Let's get the examples and let's just grab a simple interaction and let's get a box here. So this box is the one that we're going to manipulate, and we're going to have it in here, and we're going to add it in this acceleration calculator. Then we have the acceleration to pitch, which we also have an audio here. Acceleration calculator, so we also reference, we have the pitch controller. And then we have a target object, which is still the same that we had before. And then we have an audio here. And we just need an audio component to control the pitch for. I'm a little suspicious about this one because the audio component actually I think is not going to work, because that was the main limitation. Let's try. So audio is here and pitch controller here, and then we have acceleration calculator here. This audio is a track that we have here, so we have an audio folder and we actually need to set up our track. I noticed that there is not the manipulation example box in here. Let's put it in the middle, and we don't have any error, but let's see if we need to enable debug logging. So actually there is a nice debug logging that Claude provided. Smooth factor, maybe it's too strong. There is no acceleration, so one thing we can understand with this is that, first of all, what we need to understand is the acceleration is not being calculated. And for that, we need to fix that first, because without that one, we cannot actually do anything. So let's go into our project again and let's take a look at script, and then let's see what's going on in the acceleration calculator. Let's double check what's going on. This is running on update. This has an awake. Oh, there you go. I think what is happening is that actually there is not binding to update, which is a very silly error, but this is expected for Claude to know, because it's also a very specific things from Lens Studio. So I'm gonna keep this in the video because actually this is a pretty common error from tools. So what you want to do is to say, hey, I think the error is that you're not binding the update on awake. An example of binding updates on awake here. So let's go again in our handy spectacle samples here. Let's go in our essential folder, see how helpful it is for me at least. I think it's in this gesture instantiation where we are updating the object movement. Yes, so it's here. So let's just take it as a reference. This is just a reference, fully copy, only helpful to understand the pattern of binding update method. This time I did not specify do not edit other things, so I hope that with the context that it had before actually keeps things as they are. Have everything, and we should have a lot of logs now, so that's great. Let's see if we can test. We have velocity threshold, let's get 0.1, and let's open in here and let's see if things are changing. So definitely I see a lot of movement, a lot of numbers that are changing, so things are definitely working here. I see increasing them when I move things faster, so I can say proudly that things are working. For I think that this is the value called velocity delta, so this is the one, and if you notice when I move things go up. There is a minus, oh, this is probably the delta, this is probably the position, so that's why. So there is a delta magnitude, which is this absolute value that is here, goes up, but then there is also the position calculation. So we can proudly say that the acceleration calculator is working. Now, another thing that we need to test is the pitch controller. So pitch controller, audio component, acceleration calculator. I say let's go step by step. Since we're here, let's try it all. I don't think it's gonna work exactly, just what I was thinking. But the pitch controller is something that we can actually test. And if we want to really see how things are, we could just actually take a peek in our project for the DJ specs to see how things are calculated. Let's just go into our specs, and then we go as asset, audio. We have the audio reference. We go into our DJ remote. Where was it? I think it was in scene. And we go in audio controller. So we have audio source, so audio output control. So it reference definitely an audio output control, but everything should be in here. Actually, let's do a double check and go on pitch. There's not speed, nothing. Load array. I think that, so this project has something quite particular. And the fact is, the tracks are pre-processed at the very beginning of the application. This is just the volume controller. This is the volume rotator. So we won't need to probably get anything of this. Vinyl interaction, this is just for interacting things. But there's probably a reference to the audio controller. So I'm very curious. Hand controller, this one actually has some reference to the speed. So nice. Let's go to see what's happened on the pref speed and get rotating direction on start movement, get move speed. This is the speed actually of the hands. And so we are getting probably these two scripts are the ones that we need. And I'm putting also myself as a goal to turn this utility into TypeScript, because probably something is going to be very helpful. So let's do something like this. Things work for the acceleration. Now let's focus on the main folder we will need. All right, so let's go with this second part of the exercise. Now we already had Cloud Code finishing everything that we need to do here, and the pitch controller has this audio object, and this is the loop that we are playing, and then we have a pitch audio controller, and we have quite a lot of different options. Velocity mode, I assume that is the one that takes the acceleration, so we'll know. Let's just open the debugging mode. So we expect to see the debugging mode, see what's going on here. We actually see some stuff going on. And then we have manual pitch, and the manual pitch is here, and test mode. So test pitch slider, what does it do? Control by slider only in active and test mode. All right, let's try. Definitely not working as we saw. Let's try the manual pitch. What does it do? Manual pitch. I'm curious if I go manual pitch and test mode together. So it didn't work. So this is another thing that we might not have got right with this Cloud Code. So let's see what's going on. So the pitch won't work. We start applying automatically in a way, move the test pitch slider in the spec list to pitch speed changing. Watch logs for real-time values, expect results, so on and so on. All right, so we open this project here. That is the DJ specs example. And we see that we have all of those utilities actually in the scene. Hand controller copy, which is probably for the 2 disks, and so on. And from my understanding, this is the one that actually is turning on and off, turning up and down the pitch. And just to make sure that it's that one for sanity check. Alright, so the pitch is actually running on this handler. This hand controller is here. Hand controller again here. So the disk, audio controller. This is deck, scratch, scroll, create creator, DJ parent, scratch. Let's go and see where is that happening. DJ controller is, let's reverse engineer a little bit what's happening here. I assume that there are the sliders. This is the play, volume, slider A. I assume this is the slider. Let's go in here. So we got it. The slider gets interactive vinyl rotator left and set speed. So actually we have a good clue here, which is this script. This is actually the rate, and gets also the audio controller and the hand controller. So we know that the script that actually we need to look into consideration is the vinyl rotator. And then we have a disk P here, and then we have a reference to the audio controller. And the audio controller has a reference actually to the input tracks values, the loop audio, and the output audios, and also has a sample rate. So I think the audio controller, of course, is a lot more structured actually than the one that we have from Cloud Code. We almost need to use that one. This is not enough. So my suggestion is to go back in here, and I'm still aiming to turn things into TypeScript, because that's also a nice thing that is going to come with this project. So you can isolate that kind of utility. So let's go and say something like, well, I wanted to add this one, but it was already part. let's see, it was already part of the script, so let's see if it does it anyway. We also just saw that we need to actually enhance the audio controller, because probably the audio controller that we have seen before needs the load array wrapper, which it's what I was suspicious about, and probably that kind of makes sense. Because as I mentioned, this project is actually very helpful because the audio component that Lens Studio provide does not allow pitch shifting. So this utility which makes up for it, and actually something we could do at the end of this exercise could be creating asset library package that we can provide to developers from the asset library. So we went through again this kind of refactor. So actually it's a sort of refactor in a way, so I expect Claude code to do quite well. I see an error here. Let's see if it's something minor that we can fix right away or not. I mentioned that meanwhile I was doing that, I noticed that Claude code actually allowed me to shift tab to cycle accepting the edits, and also gave me this time, probably did it before but I didn't notice, it gave me an option for just allowing basically writing permission and fixing chat, this time with cursor. And let's actually provide some good context here. The component property of its class, which is what acceleration to which was expecting to set up. So that was easy, that's what I was thinking. And then, oh, I see. So you can reference directly. Oh, okay. Alright, so we definitely have some improvement, because I noticed that now it follows a little bit more like the pattern that we had in the previous project. So good copy so far. We have an audio, and then we have a output audio track. Let me just make sure that we are setting up things in the same way. We had tracks that was here, and then we have an audio, and then we have sample rate. I noticed that there is another track, which I don't understand why we have basically double track. DJ specs audio controller, we have input audio track asset, input audio component. Audio output is the original server specific purpose. There are source audio file get loaded into memory in the original code, audio control, sample rate, and so on. Later, and Q audio frame. So it says that actually in the other one we have it. There you go. We hit the limit of Claude. We limited very soon, actually. So we're gonna switch to cursor, and that's why also I keep them both here, because I wanted to go through both of them. We actually limit reached. So in less than 1 hour, we limit the reach. We reached the limit for Claude code, which is, it's probably, I have a feeling this is a lot more money than what I spent as a flat fee, so they have to probably provide a limit. So let's just go directly in cursor, and let's make sure that we restart from here. So let's just start a new one and say is modifying my audio controller to allow me to test if the pitch shifting is actually working or not. Then we already have the acceleration calculator, which we know that is working, and the next step will be remaking something that previously was not too successful. I decided just to omit it, because also we can recreate things very fast with this way to work, and things, and as long as this audio controller works and as long as this acceleration calculator works, I think will be very easy for the AI to understand what to do next. But this part, which is a little bit more, if we want to say, a refactoring part of the project, which is basically turning a JavaScript utility into a TypeScript utility first, making sure it works, and then we can just go on and remerge things. We are accepting. Now we're going with cursor. If you just take a look at the video now, we just went for the previous hour almost with Claude Code. We reached the limit of the quota, and we can just start to use it in this afternoon. So I need to wait a little bit to go back to Cloud Code. I thought pretty much was very good, but I noticed that the context is really make a difference. I wonder how different would be if I just get the $200 subscription instead. That seems like has a lot of a wider context. So let's go back in our project. What I discovered in this process is that actually this is more on me, it's not really on the AI, that I had to set things up a little bit differently in Lens Studio, actually. What you need actually is something called audio asset, which is something that you still, once again, coming from a Unity background, I don't think I've been too exposed to this environment. So definitely this blocker was not AI, it was definitely not my knowledge. But you might run into this too. So I just got these, I actually asked the AI how to test this. That's when I started to understand that things were wrong. And what I was trying to fix was this point. I assumed that, and this is an audio track asset, and I assumed that AI was actually making a mistake and it was capturing twice the same input variable. So it was just reproposing me the same thing. The reason why I was thinking that is that in the original project, what I see is that actually this audio controller, which is, where is it? Which is here, actually has just type track asset, or the array of the input tracks that we are using. And then here, in everything else we had just output. And actually what misled me was the icon which would represent this output audio. Actually, it turns out that you don't need just that, you also need this. That is an audio output that is still the same type of the input track values, but actually has a different icon. So actually very silly mistake that this is on me, and I just like keep it here in this video because it's something you could run into too. So actually this audio output and this spec, this audio track actually is the same type. It's the same input type. If we go in cursor, we see that there is audio track assets and audio track asset. This is an array, but this is just a single variable, and that's the same thing. Then we have the audio component. And another thing that you might not know right away is that this output audio, which you're having here, which is the final audio that you're gonna listen to, because we are pre-processing the tracks, and then we just do everything in the background, and then we just play the result on the front. So whatever is the audio output we have. This is let's say the asset that Lens Studio has a little bit with limitation. And this audio track is actually taking the audio output I created. Instead, what I was doing before was just directly linking my track. Of course, that's not gonna work because that's the input track. What you actually need to lead here is the audio output, which is the output of the processing of your current input track. So I don't know if this makes more sense for you, but I like pointing out some mistakes because this was a silly one, and actually the AI locked it out very soon. I think actually Cloud Code got it, and it was just on me the way we set up things wrong. So good props for AI. I think Cloud Code figured it out. And the issue is that instead of reference as an output, I thought myself that its output just get the track, but also it's reused as an output to play whatever track. So it's not important what you put in here, but actually is important. So to recap for you, just a second, this audio controller take as input your audio track, which is an MP3 that you imported into Lens Studio. Then the second step is linking an output audio, which is something that you can just create here as a scene. You just create audio and you just create an output audio like this. This is the output audio. Then you will need to create another thing that is called audio output assets. This one is created through this menus, which is an audio output. So you're gonna use this audio output here. You're gonna put it into the audio component that is going to play this audio output. And then this audio controller reference everything, referencing the input, reference the audio, and of course reference the audio component, which is the one that is gonna play one and the other one. So I hope that offers a little bit of clarity. But after, let's say, a total of 1 hour of vibe coding, we actually have most of the other utility from the other project translated into TypeScript, which is great. And then we also have an acceleration calculator, which is all we need to just make what we talked about in the beginning, which was mixing the pitch shifting with the velocity of an object. So first of all, prove that this is working. You will see that when it starts, so this is working perfect. And once again, I did not write one line of code. I just understood a little better what was the setup. And this kind of like gives me, in a way, I think I just learned a little better how to use things in Lens Studio, if you ask me. But then let's see. So now we have the audio controller and we have the acceleration calculator. We have everything we need to start to think about our final utility. And I'm sure that maybe in the end it's not gonna play perfectly, but that's gonna just be a matter of threshold and values. For example, I noticed if the rate goes too low or too high, things sounds a little bit rough. But if we keep it in a threshold of 0.5, 1.5, it's actually pretty good. I actually noticed also that the volume, if it goes more than 1, things start to become a little more manageable. So I assume if I need to polish this a little more, I would clamp this between 0.5, 1.5, and the volume, I would clamp it from 0 to 1. Calculator, the velocity, we are all good to go. So let's go back in the cursor ID, and we just go with our new query, which is now, actually, let's keep using our voice control. Things works great. Now that we have this audio controller utility working, and we also have another utility called acceleration calculator, let's create a new class named acceleration to pitch. All right, so we got quite a beefy prompt. Let's enter into this final part of the tutorial. I'm pretty bullish on this one, pretty positive, because if the first two things are figured out, there is great chance that I figured out this third one quite well. Formed. Let's accept the file. Let's drop this new acceleration to rate in my audio acceleration system. Let's reference the acceleration calculator. Let's reference the audio controller. I'm not sure that I exposed anything in those two previous utilities, but it might just be out of the box. So let's see. So clearly it's working. There might be, a lot of things that we might change in terms of moving and things, but pretty much is working. And we closed all of this in a very short amount of time without touching any line of code, maybe one or twice, very small changes. And we really demonstrated how to use the power of AI and ID with tools like Lens Studio. Of course, it would be cool if we have an access to editor and we do all of the stuff on the go. And if I think about a future body of work as a developer, personally, I would love to see a lot of game engine really merging very well with the workflow that we went through. But I think this is a very big boost for developers. And of course, I will share this project also too, because it's pretty, I think it's going to be very helpful for developers, maybe doing something like an asset library project or something like that. I hope that makes you understand what is the right setup for vibe coding on Lens Studio, and using different tools like Cloud Code and Cursor really help you to just go faster. But another thing that I think really emerged from this flow quite a lot is the fact that context is really important. And not just context of code, but also context of, in this case, editor and understanding the ecosystem very well. What blocked me the most actually was not coding this time. It was the fact that I had to set up things in the hierarchies just slightly different. And when I just understood, everything clicked and everything started to make sense. I'm pretty sure that as a developer, you go through a lot of these little moments, but that's where the learning is, and that's how you get better. Thank you so much for following. I hope this was helpful for you. You will find this project in the comments, in the description as a link, and subscribe for more. I tend to post one video per week, and if you have any topics that you're interested in, please hit me up. I will be happy to take a look at it. Peace.